Welcome to the Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring the best of the best to help you scale your business from 1 million to 1 trillion. Today, we have a very special guest, and he's back for the second time. His name is Vikas Bhambri, the Senior VP of Sales and Customer Experience at Kustomer. Vikas, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Absolutely. And for the ones who are curious to know more about Vikas and would like to see the last recording, you can go to episode 84, which was recorded in September of 2019. So almost 9 months later, we have you back on the show, and a lot have happened at Kustomer. So for the ones who have not had the opportunity to listen to the previous episode, give us just a bit an overview about yourself and Kustomer and update us on what happened since then.
Sure. So quick recap on myself. Head of sales and CX here at Kustomer. We continue to be a rocket ship, as we talked about 9 months ago. I think since we last met, we announced our Series E round, which was led by Co2. And, really exciting in terms of just closing out the year with that announcement. And then, we got off to a great start this year. We added to our leadership team, particularly for me, a couple of key partners in crime, new VP of marketing. So Gabe Larson joined us from Inside Sales, which is now Zant, and new VP of operations, Ab Gupta, who joined us from Uber. So very excited by having those two new peers as part of the executive team and helping me in the go-to-market and go forward. And then I've been further building out my leadership team with a new director of customer success, Chad Hornfeld, a new director of professional services, Sasha Greco, and most recently a new director of support, Godena Warga. So really excited about the continued growth here at Kustomer.
Wow. And for the ones who are not aware, as Vikas said, it's Kustomer raised a 60 million Series E in December last year. Some of the investors, and I will not mention all of them, it's Battery Ventures, Box Group, Redpoint, Tiger Global Management, Cisco Investments, Bold Start Ventures, Plug and Play, and so on. So really world-class partners building one of the most amazing and promising companies in the SaaS space. And it's always very good to chat with you, because I also appreciate a lot how humble you are talking about all those achievements, and also your previous corporate journey and your ambition about doing this from 0 to 100 million, and being able to have this experience and share with the future generations your experience since you have done this. You also have a great news that we can discuss a little bit later in a question in terms of how other SaaS scale-ups can integrate new team members. But you have acquired Reply.ai. It was announced this month, so it's fresh, really, really fresh, right? Congratulations.
Very exciting for us as a company, for the team. And, as we've said, it allows us to expand our product portfolio for our customers. And also, continues our global expansion, as most of the Reply team is based in Spain, in Madrid, as you know. So very exciting on a number of fronts for Kustomer, both the company and the crew, as we call it.
Absolutely. And so we are nowadays producing this wartime season to help all entrepreneurs worldwide navigate COVID times and scale during COVID times, or getting prepared to be stronger after COVID times. So the idea is really to inspire people to have an abundant mindset instead of being in a fear-based mindset, and looking for the opportunity, looking for solutions, looking for the bright side of this, instead of looking to the dark side, because we already have enough news on that available. And it's always good to know, as you know, we have now a global audience and global guests on the show, so we We had recently China, Korea, and all other experiences covering what is happening in terms of COVID in their locations. For the ones, this is interesting now because it's important when we are recording this. It's the 27th of May. What is the update, or what is the status of New York, where you are located and based in terms of COVID-19? How is the situation? Do you use masks? Do you go outside? How is it going now there?
So, as you know, you're well aware, right? The world is in the midst of this pandemic. Unfortunately, the U.S. has found itself at the center of it, and within that, we selfish New Yorkers, we've said it for years, New York's the center of the world. And then we are really the center of this pandemic. I mean, unfortunately, the number of cases and the situation. So, Kustomer is a New York City based headquartered company where a large percentage of our employees are. We were one of the first companies in New York City to shut down our offices and move to a work from home model. I actually live in one of the suburbs of New York City, Long Island. And so New York City is still in complete quarantine. We have, our governor has different phases. So we are, New York City is in phase 0. My suburb just entered phase 1 of the program today, which now means there are some types of businesses, very specific, construction, manufacturing, retail can now open with curbside or delivery. So we're being very thoughtful about how we're approaching this and as a community, as a collective community. And I think, yes, we're wearing the masks when we go out and doing all of the precautions we need to make. And, I have not been, out of my house except for a walk. I mean, in terms of just even shopping, everything is delivered. So thankful to the e-commerce world, the acceleration of e-commerce. And so, yeah, that's the current situation that we're in here in New York.
Got it. And do you have other offices across the world? So any updates on your other offices? How is the situation? Is everyone working from home, or do you have any office which is going to?
So we have offices in New York, North Carolina, San Francisco, and of course now Madrid. And I think we're working and looking at what the local community is doing. What are the local mandates coming out? So our HR team, I think, is doing an amazing job of kind of monitoring the situation. California is obviously in a pretty severe situation as well. So kind of monitoring what is going on there and when it's appropriate to open up if we need to. And same thing in North Carolina, which was less infected, but we're actually seeing, unfortunately, North Carolina rates seem to be going up recently. So I think our HR team is doing an amazing job of just monitoring this and then making a real-time decision as to how we need to operate and how we need to communicate with our teams.
Okay, it's amazing. So let's start with our critical ingredients to scale that we always discuss on the show. I will not ask you exactly the same questions because for the ones who want to know the opinion of Vikas about those topics, you can go to episode 84. And those ingredients are radical focus, number 1, number 2, world-class leadership, and number 3, a culture of execution. And we keep co-creating these ingredients with the guests and asking them to challenge us to create new ones or to change the current ones. And let's start with the first one on this sense, what you just have been explaining in terms of hosting new team members, welcoming new team members that are joining to the team, and being the first company in New York to shut down the office. So how do you keep everyone safe? How do you keep everyone happy, everyone engaged when everyone is now working from home, several weeks inside home, especially in your areas of revenue and sales, customer experience, where it's already a roller coaster. So working on a scale up or on a startup is a roller coaster. Working in those kinds of areas is huge pressure. It's another roller coaster. And selling and marketing and go to market in a context of COVID is even more a roller coaster. So managing all these emotions and getting results out of this, it might be very, very difficult. So how do you, a leader, keep everyone motivated, engaged, inspired to keep executing the plan?
I think that's been the number one thing, right? The number one focus for us as a leadership team and myself has been the team, right? How do we make sure, like when this thing first happened, right, is, first thing we wanted to make sure was everybody was just safe and healthy. That was the number one thing, and in fact, I even personally had been traveling right up until this. I was on the West Coast. The previous week I was in Miami for our sales club. So we were, we didn't really know what this was, right? We were being told it was the flu, et cetera. And we probably weren't taking the precautions we now are because nobody understood the gravity of the situation. So number one was we wanted to make sure everybody was safe and healthy. And then it was a question of like, how long is this going to go? Like nobody knew then. We all suspected at the time that it was going to be short term. Now we're understanding that this is unfortunately a more longer term endeavor. So the immediate thing was making sure people were able to work from home. And so that meant everything from, letting people back into the office to go grab some key things, right? Do people have internet, the right level of bandwidth at home? Our security and ops team did an amazing job of making sure that everybody was in a secure environment because we are, we pride ourselves on the security that we offer our clients. And so being able to maintain that. So those were all things that we had to account for just to get people, quote unquote, what I would say the basics of up and running. Then the other thing was, do people have the infrastructure? Do they have the desk set up? Do they have the desk chair, et cetera? So we wanted to make sure we gave every employee a stipend to go and invest in making sure they had the right home setup, because some of them were not prepared for that.
Absolutely.
Right now, as you kind of go through that flow, it's not temporary. So, we had people that were going back to families, to homes, different environments to make sure that they were set up for the long term, right? Maybe they had a loved one to take care of, et cetera. So making sure we could accommodate, that as well. So we've been, like everybody else, we're dealing with it on a case by case basis, right? We have, unfortunately, team members that live alone in an apartment in New York City and, don't have roommates, et cetera. And so that, making sure that, they've have that environment where they have that social interaction. And I think our HR, our ops team has done an amazing job of making sure we're bringing people together. Whether we've done a karaoke night, right? We've done quiz night now a couple of times. And it's amazing the competitive nature that we have here at Kustomer, that we have when we do quiz night in the office, it transcends into Zoom. So, seeing, how we're doing these things, teams are having happy hours but it's even interesting to see how people are reacting to happy hours. Like first everybody was super excited. Then you saw attendance start to dwindle because people are like, I'm on Zoom, for 8 hours a day. I don't want to go to a Zoom happy hour. Right.
Want to disconnect.
It's been interesting to see how, just people are evolving through this. And I think the key thing as leaders is we have to be cognizant of that. That, what worked a week or 2 weeks ago no longer works. And we continuously have to update our emotions. And then we have to be in tune with ourselves because I think we sometimes forget about ourselves. How are we reacting to this, right? How are we reacting to good news, bad news, the new environments, that we're in, right? I'm back to working from home, something I had not done in the last 3 years at Kustomer. I'd done it in previous roles. So, recalibrating with my family in terms of who works where, because now they're all working from home, including my daughters. Right? So I think there's a lot of those things that we need to be extremely mindful of. And, the key thing for me is, look, you're not going to have all the answers as a leader. Is just have that open mind to continuously be changing and listening to the team. To make sure you adjust, not only at a macro level, but down to the individual level.
Love it. Very, very, very good points. And something that I've been discussing with some of CEOs in the companies that I work with is how all of this have changed it also. And moving to the second topic, the world-class leadership. So the game has completely changed it now. So in the past, you would need to be in the headquarters if you would need to be in an influential position, or for instance, in the leadership team seat. And nowadays, we are finding amazing people that were already in the team, but they were in other offices, for instance, and we didn't want to promote them to critical positions in the company because they were not in the headquarters and they didn't have the chance to have a coffee with colleagues, to be closer to the main teams. And now everyone is working from home, and it doesn't matter where you are, even if the time zone works well and it's not an obstacle. What is happening on your side on that sense? What is happening in terms of talent pool with the new working from home environment?
I think, from a talent pool perspective, there's no immediate changes for us, right? I mean, for us, we're still, we haven't, determined that long-term strategy. We're kind of looking at it, kind of like as I was joking about with New York State, phase 0, phase 1, we're looking at it very much in the same way. However, we are figuring out that there are, there's a different level of collaboration, a different level of communication that this distributed environment is allowing for, right? So a couple of things, right? So just kind of communication. One is, I'm really making sure, I can't do as a leader, a lot of the understanding the pulse of the team, even though my team has been distributed since almost, I would say, not day one, but pretty early into my tenure at Kustomer. I was one of the first leaders to have people that were remote, right? Because of course, sales leader, I had people that were in California, I had people that were in Texas, I had people in Ohio. And, even as my customer experience team has grown, I now have a North Carolina team, but I have individuals that are in Seattle, et cetera. So I've been one of the first to have a distributed environment, but still a big core of my team was in New York. And I did rely on what I call the coffee or the water cooler talk to get a pulse of how the team was doing. What are they thinking? How are they reacting to certain decisions? I don't have that luxury anymore. So now I'm finding other ways, right? And as much as I, previously have not been the biggest fan of Slack, I now am, right? Because I can literally do a drop-in to any individual. How are things going? Do you need to catch up? And of course, Zoom has become, hashtag Zoom has become my fallback. Like, let's jump on a Zoom, let's talk. So I think those two technologies have played a pivotal role. But other things that I'm doing like a bi-weekly Ask Me Anything, right? Mm-hmm. So I just bring the teams together. They submit their questions, and it's an open forum, open discussion. And it's been really, I get everything from the quirky, what's your workout during this pandemic, to obviously serious questions, like, people that are genuinely concerned about the macroeconomic climate and things like that. So, and how is that going to impact customer? So I think that's been key. Our town halls led by our CEO, Brad, have been, very communicative, very detailed, because we want to make sure that everybody understands what's going on in the business. How does it impact them? Gives them an opportunity to ask questions. Because we can't take for granted as leaders anymore that people just know. You effectively need to communicate. So I think that is one of the key things for me. And then collaboration. I think the exciting thing is now, no matter where you are, this to me maybe ties to your talent pool question, you have a voice at the table, right? It used to be like, look, no matter what you say, the 4 people sitting in the office in New York, even if you were on a Zoom, were in an enviable position of being able to have a sidebar conversation, et cetera. Now everybody's on a Zoom. So whether you're in our North Carolina office, you're working from home, you're dialing in from Seattle, San Francisco, everybody's on the same playing field. And I think that is allowing people to feel more confident, more comfortable, and it will allow talent to rise to the top regardless of where they are, because the communication barrier is no longer a factor.
Absolutely, I love that. To be frank, and it's really a huge mindset shift that came from this COVID crisis. So there were a lot of CEOs that would not imagine a company working from home and working remotely, and nowadays are completely convinced. And it's not only that it is possible; it might be even a competitive advantage and something critical for the success of the company. And I think it totally changed it. It's not a question about if it is possible. It is proven that it is possible. It is, if this is important in terms of being competitive and making the company competitive in terms of in the customer side and in the employee or talent side.
So the really key thing for any, whether it's a CEO or somebody in my shoes, I think, is look, in any situation, particularly a global pandemic, is not to make any rushed decisions. And I know obviously anybody who's earned the title of CEO and so on is not going to, that's generally not their mindset. So number one is really be thoughtful of not making a decision in this situation that hampers you in the long term. So I think that's number one. Number two is you have to look at it. I don't believe it's a one size fits all. I think you need to look at it. As I said, I've had a distributed sales team very early on into my tenure at Kustomer, even as a young company, because that made sense for the model, the business, the type of sales motion we had. Even with customer success team members, implementation team members. But I do still think I will look at certain roles and maybe not rush to say that work from home is the permanent environment for them. I think there are certain roles where mentorship is extremely critical. If I'm to coach a team of first-time business development representatives, as an example, I do think that mentorship is critical, and I do think that some mentorship is better served face-to-face than you can do virtually. That's just the nature of it. And I think so. I would just, before we rush to judgment and say, look, everybody's going to work from home forever, is really think through the roles and the experience levels and the expectations of those people, because some people actually in some roles, gravitate, you'll get the top talent, top business development, young professionals will tell you one of the reasons they take a role at a company is for that mentorship to get to the next level, to become an account executive. Absolutely. So something to be thoughtful about.
Absolutely. I think it's the same kind of discussion that we had several years ago when we were talking about offline marketing and digital marketing. So offline marketing is dead. Now it's only digital marketing. And we understood that it's a blended experience and it's kind of a hybrid workplace. And there are roles that will need to be more present in the office or in the office of the client. And some of them might be more location agnostic.
So great example, right? A week ago, on my Twitter timeline, I think every venture capitalist was talking about the death of the big cities. Like San Francisco and New York are done. Real estate markets are going to collapse. Everybody's going to work from a cabin in Montana. And, and a week later, they open up the barbershops in San Francisco, and all of a sudden everybody is like, San Francisco is back. And so once again, look, we're all dealing with this on a personal basis. We're all making, they say don't make life-changing decisions. Like some people are like, oh, I'm going to leave New York City and I'm never coming back. Okay. I mean, some people that will be the right decision, but for some people it may not. So I do think there's that level of everybody's dealing with this, and even companies are dealing with this and trying to think through how they react.
So let's go to the question that everyone that is at home and is listening from someone with revenue functions and sales and customer experience is thinking about. So I think that this is all amazing what you are talking about. It's very inspiring, very motivating, but I still need to be able to achieve my results in this time. And usually in this kind of positions, pressure is very high, and COVID might be a good excuse, but at the same time, it would not be an excuse for a very long time. And I will be in the hot seat. So as a leader and still in the world-class leadership segment, what can I do to still keep motivating and selling during COVID times, and how are you guys adapting, and how are you adapting as a leader to provide ideas, insights, new approach, being creative to help them be successful during COVID times?
So and now is the time where A, there are no bad ideas. B, this is, to me, this has been in a way a great forcing function of our marketing team, our business development team, our sales team, our channel team, all really coming together. To say, and even my customer experience team, like, how do we come together to focus on, where we can continue to run a successful revenue generating business? And, number one is, very quickly, we had to look at our ICP, right? What is our target industry, right? Are any of our target industries impacted by COVID? And if they are, how long are they going to be impacted for? I.e., retail, right? Might have been one. So let's push that to the side for a moment, and let's go focus at other components in our ICP that are not in fact impacted. And one of the areas where we've been very successful in is the delivery space. And boy, oh boy, I just said, right, I haven't gone to a grocery store in now almost 2.5 months. Everything is being delivered. So that was a really key cog for us as an example. And then the third is, are there any other industries that previously maybe we had said were a future state that we now want to accelerate because of where they are or their resiliency or whatever? So I think that's number one. Then you get these different groups to figure out, how do we pivot? What are the things we need to do to enable, to market, to sell into that ICP? The other key thing is, a part of a SaaS revenue machine in particular is your existing customers. So how do we work to make sure that our existing customers are maximizing the value from their investment? How are they doing, right? Are there any impacts to their business? What can we do to be a good partner to them, right? Because I think that's extremely critical, and something we pride ourselves in is, partnering with them. So when they do come out of this pandemic, like we all will, is that we are continuing to be part of their growth trajectory. So those are some of the things that we've done. We obviously offered some of our services at no cost to our customers, because the great thing about the customer platform is you can work from home. So, so many of our customers were able to take their 300, 400, 500 person contact center, and in a day or two, they were working from home. I mean, that is truly inspiring, right? And really happy that we could help navigate that effort, and then, layer on some tools that allowed them to even manage more effectively. Number one. Number two is, just getting the team to understand that, yes, we almost had to coach them through the fact that there will be a lull in the market, because just like what you're going through in terms of transition to work from home, depending on where in the world or where in the country you're calling somebody, they're going to go through the same thing. And I would say for the first month, we either got no responses to calls, people not showing up to meetings that they had accepted, even some hostile reaction, like, how dare you call me in the midst of this pandemic to pitch customer? But then what you found was, after about 30 to 45 days, and people had, just like we had, adjusted to the new normal, or new temporary normal, as I prefer to say, much more receptive to then taking those calls, listening, working through. And then we found like things starting to come back online. We just had to have that patience of about 30 to 45 days, understanding that everybody was going through what you were going through. And some may still, like, if there's a spike in a part of the world, a part of the country, you may have to back off a little bit again. So it was really that kind of coaching we had to give our team, whether it be the business development or sales team, to say, look, and we came out with a playbook, particularly, we put it together in a course of a weekend, when this thing we realized this was not the flu, in in a weekend, we put together a playbook for our entire go-to-market team to help them through this, navigate this journey.
Got it. That's really a great point. And going to the last component, we have already gave here a lot of examples of rhythms that are working very well for you. The town hall, the karaoke session, the Ask Me Anything session with you. So around the culture of execution. But something that is quite amazing is really to do an acquisition during COVID times and onboarding or welcoming a team in during COVID times without being able to go to Madrid or to Spain to just say hello, welcome to the team, and so on. So, how were you able to make them feel, happy to join, welcome, integrate with them? So what are some of the tips for the ones who might be facing the same kind of challenges?
Sure. So one, I want to give credit to our VP of Operations, Ab Gupta, who put together an amazing plan. Not just detailing, obviously, the things that you normally go through with an acquisition is, in terms of, roles and responsibilities and who's going to report to what part of the organization and all of that, what I almost call like the logistics. But, looking at pre-post and then working with not only our HR team, our IT team, and then the leadership team to make sure we had a very clear game plan as to what life would look like for the Reply.ai team post-acquisition, whether it be, the teams they were joining, the leadership, who was going to communicate. And I just think that was very well thought out. Of course, there's always going to be a blip here, a blip there.
Of course.
But last week was their kind of full onboarding. They had, full week of, HR activities that were being done, the IT setup, the meetings, with their new team members. So kind of, introducing them. And then like even myself, right, as a leader, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm very important. I need to get in front of these people. And I was like, look, they have so much on their plate. There's so many people. It's hard. And so the beauty for me is I've been in their shoes. I actually had my welcome with them prior to this call, and I was sharing with them. Within a year, I went from a startup that was 17 million that got acquired by JD Edwards, that merged with PeopleSoft, that got acquired by Oracle within a year. And this was very early in my career, so I didn't have the experience I do now. So my thing was like, I've been in their shoes. We have so many new people coming at you. So I backed off and I said, look, I sent them an email saying, I don't want you to think I'm dismissing you, but we will connect. And I want you to know how important it is for us to connect. And I connected with them today. And all I did was share with them a little bit about the customer journey over the last 3 years, and then a little bit about myself and my experience over the last 20 years. And then, just made sure they were aware that they could reach out to me, communicate with me, Slack, email, phone, day or night, right? And so I think that's, that's the thing is, yeah, particularly if you're going to acquire a company during this pandemic, you're not going to be able to do some of the things you would, right? We had to postpone our celebration until we can all get together, fly the team over from Madrid, do some of those things, and we will do them. But I think in the meantime, we want to make sure that on a human-to-human level, that they understand who we are as people and that, we're available to them and that we get to know them as well, right? What are their career aspirations? What motivates them, etc.
Love it. And before we go to the last and our favorite question of the show, that I will do a tweak or I will pivot, as you already answered to the previous one, but I will keep you curious. But before, there is something that I've been thinking a lot during the last weeks and the last months working with clients, which is something that I'm seeing again and again and again. And you're talking about the revenue machine early on, and we talk a lot about this in SaaS. And one of the most important causes of startup death and scale-up death it's really premature scaling. So trying to scale without having a proper machine in place. And something that is interesting is getting from 0 to 1 million ARR is really, really difficult. But from 1 million to 5 million, if you are on the right spot in the right space, without too much credit, you might be able to get to 5 million in freestyle. But from 5 to 10, sometimes people struggle a lot to get there because you can't get there anymore in freestyle. So you need to have that revenue machine in place to be scalable. And even if you get to 10 million, then to 20, 25 or 50, it would be almost impossible if you don't have the right people on the right seats, on the revenue seats. And if you don't have the framework, the playbook, as you said, which is repeatable, profitable, cash friendly, scalable, and predictable. So you can put X amount of dollars and get another amount of scale. So do you agree with that? That after a certain point, if you don't have this revenue machine, this predictable revenue machine, it is really impossible and you will face a plateau in terms of growth. And what has been your experience with customer? If you can also disclose in what stage of revenue you are, of course, you don't need to disclose the exactly ARR number, but just to give some context to the audience.
Yeah, I'll pass on that question. But look, I mean, we're 3 years into this journey, right? And yep. So I think that's kind of more important than kind of where we fall in the revenue bucket. But we've had tremendous growth year over year in that journey. I think the key thing is the playbook. Yes, you need a core basis which you're starting with. That's going to get you from 0 to 1, 1 to 3. 3 to X, et cetera, yep. Whether you're doing the triple, double, which right. We talked about or not.
Last time, yeah.
Right. But I think the key thing is, I think it's very important for me is to constantly be willing to change the playbook as you go from these tiers. What right. worked 0 to 1, look, a lot of companies will tell you 0 to 1 is like a friends and family. It's like fundraising, right? A lot of people are people that either your investors introduce you to or your CEO is friends with, et cetera. That motion is not sometimes a realistic motion, right? And so really then it's your 1 to 3 that is, or 1 to 4 that is the real motion, right? So I think that's the real key thing is when do you really start getting through the sales cycles, start getting the data to then kind of go back in. And it's going to be different if you're an enterprise business, a mid-market business, or SMB business.
Exactly.
One is the willingness to change as you continue to go further up in terms of revenue. The second piece is the willingness to experiment. I think that's extremely critical because I think to say, look, we've got this one play and this one play is going to get me from 1 to 100. I think you'll be kidding yourself. So how do you start saying, look, I feel good about this motion. Now I want to either lower, maybe I want to add an up market motion, or I want to add a down market, or I want to add a vertical, or I want to add a geography. I think those all become critical lenses to look at to continue the growth rate.
Absolutely. Got it. And so we want to keep the episode short, and we are ready. It's very tempting with you because I keep going and going and going, and I feel bad to need to cut the show now with our favorite question. So last time I asked you if you would have the opportunity to meet yourself when you were joining Kustomer, what advice would you give to yourself? And today I will ask you, when you get back to the next episode in May 2021, what would make you fulfilled? If you have been sharing with us in the new episode some achievements and some lessons, what would make you proud?
Yeah, I think the number one thing for me is that we successfully navigate this pandemic, right? If I look a year from now, and what I mean by that is, very concrete, measurables. Number one, the team. Do we keep the team engaged and thriving? And I think that's the number one thing for me. We have continued to grow. We're still adding new team members. We call it the crew. We're still adding members to the crew every day, which I think is super exciting for us as a high growth company. And I want to make sure that we continue to be a place that people want to come in and work for. So I think that's number one. I think number two is that we're doing right by our customers. That's core to one of our, our values. And I want to see our customers continuing to thrive, helping them through this pandemic. So those will be number one, number two. And then of course, number three is, look, we came into a space knowing that there are some big, well-defined incumbents, right? Salesforce and Zendesk. And I want to be able to share with you, a year from now, that we've continued to take market share away from them, and we've continued to be a challenge for them. And so those are the three things that I will look for, a year from now, when I hope to be back on the air with you, to say that we have been successful as a leadership team here at Kustomer.
Crystal clarity, very clear notion of success. That's what amazing leaders are made of. Vikas, thank you so much for making the time to share your update on what is happening in our world and with Kustomer, and proud of your achievements. And thanks again for making the time.
Thank you, Mike. Be well and be safe.
And to our community, we keep bringing you the best of the best. Vikas is back, and Vikas will be back at least 1 year from now to keep sharing with you the best insights, the best tools, the best frameworks to help you be successful scaling during COVID times and after COVID times. As Vikas said, stay healthy, stay well, and keep scaling. See you soon.